Well, the rolling news break at this point of time is that the Iranian delegation has landed in Islamabad. The American delegation will be landing shortly. These are pictures of Vice President J.D. Vance boarding his flight last night, and the flight will be landing in Pakistan shortly. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, as you know, is leading the American delegation for these crucial ceasefire talks with Iran. He is joined by Steve Witkoff, who is the peace envoy in the Trump administration, along with Trump advisor and son-in-law Jared Kushner. They're all part of the US talks team. All eyes are on Islamabad, where the two delegations, the Iranian delegation and the American delegation, will be meeting. These are the first direct talks, official talks between the US and Iran in many, many decades. And that's the reason why this goes beyond just the ceasefire aspect of this war. This is history in the making. After nearly half a century, the two countries will come face to face with their senior leaders in order to hammer out what looks like a very, very difficult deal. But even as they approach this ceasefire table, I'm joined by India's most respected and most watched conflict reporters who join me from different parts of the world. Vishnu Shom is live with me from Mauritius, where he's been tracking global leaders from the global south who've been converging to talk about the region. Nazir Masoodi, my colleague, is live from Lebanon, the country that has become the new, very, very violent and escalatory flashpoint in the wake of the ceasefire. And Pradeep Datta from the Israel-Lebanon border in the northern part of that country, who's been tracking the escalation from that side. Good to have all of you with me. It's a crucial time. I'm going to start it off with you, Vishnu. The ceasefire talks, as they are configured right now, don't inspire a great deal of confidence. But perhaps the only thing that does is that both sides have at least demonstrated a layer of intent in terms of reaching some kind of a deal. How's it looking to you, Vishnu?
Shiv, I think the words layer of intent perfectly summarizes what the present scenario is. And I think, as you mentioned just a few minutes back, it's been decades. In fact, the first time, as I understand it, since the Iranian revolution, that leaders of the rank of vice president and above have come face to face, leaders of the United States and Iran. That is historic, absolutely. And therefore, it is important that both sides achieve something. And I think there is, despite the public statements, a real urgency on both sides to ensure that something gets done. Look, the situation is untenable. For Iran, it is untenable because one way or the other, the American strikes have really hit their infrastructure. They've hit, their facilities, their navy, their air force, their ports. It has set back their economy by at least a decade in terms of infrastructure. Some would suggest perhaps even more. For America, this has resulted in an untenable situation where all of its Gulf partners, which provide oil and gas to the entire world, perhaps with the exception largely of the United States itself, those countries have been hit. There has been no regime change which has taken place. The threat of Iranian ballistic missiles and drones does remain. And we find ourselves in a situation where the global economy is going to take a serious GDP hit. Of that, there is absolutely no doubt. Even if the refinery facilities, which have been damaged as a result of Iranian strikes, were to be repaired immediately, it would still take a matter of months, if not years, for normal supply to get resumed. And it's not going to be repaired immediately. It's going to take a period of time. Therefore, the stakes are high. From a political standpoint, It's very high for Donald Trump. It's very high for J.D. Vance as well. He's been relatively quiet throughout the process of this entire war. But the Iranians seem to trust him more than they trust Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, who are also over there. The Iranian delegation, as you mentioned, reached a little while earlier on. Let's see where these talks go.
Important point you're making. The Iranians have said that they would like to talk to J.D. Vance. They don't want to talk to anybody else. They were unwilling to interface with anybody else, and that's why it is J.D. Vance who's leading these talks. There were reports suggesting that Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of Trump, was supposed to lead these talks, but the Iranians said there's no way in hell he's going to be the lead of that delegation. So very interesting little point over there. I want to go to our correspondents in the war zone as well. First to you, Nazir. Lebanon is the big sticking point right now. It is still being bombed as late as a few hours ago, even as these delegations are arriving in Islamabad. So even though talks are happening, a conversation has happened over the phone, and on Tuesday we are expecting talks to take place in Washington, mediated by the United States. Lebanon is still very much the big issue in the room that has not been resolved, Nazir.
Exactly, and it is the biggest sticking point still, but there are hopes and there are indications that there is some resolution, there is some sort of ceasefire. Number one, for the last, now I can say, 48 hours, there has not been a bombing in Beirut, despite massive air activity, which is still right now going on. For some time, it had stopped in the morning, and it has again started. But look, what Iranians are trying to do, they are sending a very, very powerful message when they reach Pakistan. Mr. Muhammad Bakir Ghalibaf, who is head of this delegation, put out the image in the aircraft of those children and those who were killed, Minab school, and their picture school bags, and put in Persian, Hamraha Man Dar Parvaz. These are my companions in this flight. And sending a message, they are representing those children who have been killed in that first bombing in Minab school, where 168 children were killed. But now here in Lebanon, there are many players. There's a government which has now said they are entering into dialogue with direct talks with Israel, and Israel has said yes. On Wednesday, they would be discussing ceasefire in Lebanon. So that is the big deal. It's not something which this Lebanese government has asked for first time. They have been asking always that Israel should talk to them, not talk to this Hezbollah or Iran. Let's have a direct talks. But Israel was not agreeing because they knew Lebanese government doesn't have power. They don't have any card. They don't have military power. It is the Hezbollah which is the force on ground and which is the threat to Israel. And that's why they wanted some sort of peace with Hezbollah. But we see after more than 40 days, there's massive bombing. Hezbollah is also hitting back because they have it is a formidable force, particularly in South Lebanon, where they have all the underground facilities, like Iran has made underground facilities.
Yeah.
They have all the military facilities underground. That's why, despite all the military might, Israel could not make much advances, just 7 or 8 kilometers deep inside Lebanese territory, where they have literally decimated villages, used the Gaza playbook, detonated houses, destroyed everything to ensure that it becomes a completely uninhabitable. The whole area is depopulated. But now we have to see the last point is, last thing is, will this Lebanese issue, Lebanese ceasefire, threaten the talks, or it is getting to be resolved?
No, that is the core question, Nazir. The question you're asking is the core question. Will the Lebanese issue, derail the talks, or will it be resolved? Because at this point of time, and Pradeep, I'm coming to you right now, Netanyahu has signaled that he is willing to talk. He has not signaled that he is willing to stop bombing Lebanon. Those are two very different things.
Yes, Shiv, you're absolutely right. If you try to understand things from Israeli point of view, what they are saying that Lebanon and Hezbollah are two different things, because they are saying that what Iran is trying to do, they are trying to project these villains as victims. So Lebanon, you can't treat Lebanon and Hezbollah the same way. So what they are saying is that they will continue targeting Lebanon so because they have to disarm Hezbollah. That's what actually they are saying.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that we have seen that in the last 48 hours, the attack on Lebanon is continuing, because they are basically trying to keep their ugly heads down. That's one of the reasons that they are continuously bombing this area. But so far as dialogue with the Lebanon is concerned, because already they have decided to hold a dialogue, there has been first telephonic conversation, and in the coming days they are going to meet in Washington. But yes, there is a trust deficit. We have seen the trust deficit is between Iran and United States of America. The similar kind of a trust deficit is between Lebanon as well as Israel. So they want that there should be a guarantor, and they want United States of America to play a role of a guarantor, so that tomorrow when they are going to have a dialogue, they are going to discuss each and everything. But so far as Israel is concerned, because I've been talking to the people there on the ground, I've been interacting with the officials also, they are saying that for the last several decades they have suffered because of Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a terror organization. So you can't treat Hezbollah the same way you are treating the Lebanon government.
Yeah.
So what Iran is trying to do, they are trying to safeguard their proxy, which they had been using all these years. They are the one who have got their hands soaked in blood. They are the one who have been killing people in northern Israel. So till they are armed, the peace cannot exist. That's one of the reasons they do not want to give any kind of a legitimacy by making them a stakeholder or giving or compromising with the situation. Because they feel once they are going to compromise with them, they are going to further assemble, they are going to further get more arms and ammunition from Iran, and they're going to further target them. That would be really very difficult for people of Israel. So it will be like betraying their own people. So they want that at least the campaign that they have started against them, that campaign should continue. That means bombing those areas.
Yeah.
As Nazir had been reporting from that side, how they had been bombing that area. More than 250 people have lost their lives, and still the bombing in some of the places in southern Lebanon is continuing. Because I was in the northern Israel side, we
Yes.
saw that the Hezbollah has also been retaliating. They're also firing projectiles. Many of the structures have been hit in northern Israel. I was interacting with the people. They said that they are the one who are targeting us in such a situation. How come you expect that IDF will not be targeting them? Because they are not the one who understand the language of peace. You can talk peace only with the people who really understand language of peace. But Hezbollah
No, absolutely.
doesn't understand the language
And
of
also,
peace.
let me
In
just
such
say
a
that,
situation, you
that
can't think
you know,
of having
the
any kind of compromise.
Hezbollah dynamic is a complicated one that obviously predates this war, and it's become even more complicated because of the dynamics here. Vishnu, I just wanted to get your views on one aspect that Pradeep spoke about, because all sides have this on their minds right now, that this ceasefire reprieve, even this couple of weeks of a ceasefire, which may or may not become a larger kind of solution, is a time where all sides are going to be regrouping, rearming, recuperating, in the expectation that there may be the possibility that this conflict re-erupts.
Oh, so Shiv, if you're asking me whether I think that this is a tactical pause from a military standpoint, I tend to agree with you somewhat. I do believe that that is what the forces on all sides would be doing. I think it is an occasion for all the GCC nations, whether it's Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, to be consolidating, to be ensuring, for example, in the case of Saudi Arabia, that the west to east oil corridor, which has been pipeline, which has been hit, there are some repairs to that. Iran has been hit the most. There's been a significant loss of life on the ground, infrastructure. They need to sort out their situation on the ground. I think the best case scenario, Shiv, is that we get into this into this not so calm normalcy which we saw before the war. That Israel and Iran will never be friends, at least not not instantly. Israel will continue to threaten Iran. Iran will continue to threaten Israel. Iran may have its proxies, whether in Lebanon or the Houthis in Yemen. But that active fighting might actually come to an end. But that is premised on the Strait of Hormuz being opened up.
Yeah.
So I think that is the best case scenario, because the regime in Iran remains the same. So that new future, new tomorrow, that's not going to happen in quite the way that Israel. That's all.
Very important point that you're making. A tactical pause, the expectation that the war could actually be expanding, the fact that each side, doesn't hold many hopes from what is going to begin very shortly in Islamabad, and yet there is an intent, perhaps a fatigue factor as well after 40 days of war, and nobody really wants to go back. But as our reporters have told us, the uranium issue, the Strait of Hormuz issue, the assets issue, Lebanon, these are the four issues that are sticking out right now as the big barriers to talks actually moving forward in a meaningful way, and there doesn't appear to be a way around them. So that is going to be down to the skills of the negotiators that sit across the table in Islamabad in just a moment. Vishnu, Pradeep and Nazir, I'm going to come back to you in a moment, but tensions are rising as Donald Trump has warned that the United States is locked and loaded. He's playing his usual mind games, he's power projecting, pressure tactics, all of this amidst the uncertainty over Iran's intentions in these ceasefire talks. Iran's delegation, led by Parliamentary Speaker Mohammad Ghalibaf, is already in Pakistan for these ceasefire talks with the United States. US President Trump's push to steady the West Asian crisis. He said, "We'll find out what's going on. They are militarily defeated, and now we're going to open up the Strait of Hormuz." Meanwhile, Ghalibaf of Iran, who has reached Islamabad for talks, says, "Unfortunately, our experience with negotiations with the Americans has always been accompanied by failure and a breach of commitments." Well, be that as it may, they are both going to be sitting across the table in an hour from now. As diplomacy continues, the US Vice President J.D. Vance is going to be landing very shortly. He's already in the airspace over Uzbekistan, we are told, and will be landing any moment now in Pakistan's capital. Meanwhile, as per reports, the US continues to deploy more troops in West Asia around the Persian Gulf for possible expansion of operations in Iran, as these negotiations are all set to begin.
Is this a one and done talk, or are you open to more talks after this, depending on
I don't know. I can't tell you. I have to see what happens tomorrow. They've been talking for 47 years with other presidents, and we're not doing much talking.
What would a good deal look like for you?
No nuclear weapon, number one. You know, I think it's already been regime change, but we never had that as a criteria. No nuclear weapon. That's 99% of it. You don't need a backup plan. We have the military is defeated. Their military is gone. They have, we've degraded just about everything. They have very few missiles. They have very little manufacturing capability. We've hit them hard. Our military is amazing, the job they've done. Well, I wish him luck. He's got a big thing. I will find out what's going on. They're militarily defeated. And now we're going to open up the Gulf with or without them. But that'll be open. We're going to be, or the Strait as they call it. And I think it's going to go pretty quickly. And if it doesn't, we'll be able to finish it off. One way or the other, it's going well. The Navy's gone. The Air Force is gone. All anti-aircraft is gone. The leaders are gone. The whole place is gone. So we'll see how it turns out. So it's JD and Steve and Jared.
We're looking forward to the negotiation. I think it's going to be positive. We'll, of course, see. As the President of the United States said, if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand. If they're going to try to play us, then they're going to find that the negotiating team is not that receptive. So we're going to try to have a positive negotiation. The President has gave us some pretty clear guidelines, and we're going to see.
يقول بعض العرب إيران دولة إسلامية والوقوف معها واجب شرعي. معقول؟ فأيها العرب، الترهيب الذي نجح النظام الإيراني وأذرائه سابقا بتشويه وعيكم لن يمر مرور الكرام. كيف تتعاطفون مع إيران التي تقصف الدول العربية وتتآمر على أمن المنطقة؟ القول أن إيران دولة إسلامية والوقوف معها واجب شرعي لا يمت للشرعية الإسلامية بصلة، والشعار مردود عليه. هذه ليست معركة المسلمين ضد الكفار، هذه معركة الحق ضد الباطل. فالنظام الإيراني لم يكن أبدا نسيرا للعرب أو للمسلمين.
Bringing Vishnu, Pradeep and Nazir back in. Vishnu, the kind of power talk, the hard talk, the kind of taunting talk, the threatening talk, the muscle flexing, we've seen so much of it, and we've seen extremes of it, especially from President Trump. Doesn't the law of diminishing returns kind of apply in this case? Because, they've been trash-talking each other so much through this war, and now they're still trash-talking each other right before the negotiations.
So, Shiv, there is no law of diminishing returns on social media, as you know.
Yeah.
I would suspect that their public positions and their positions ahead of the talks through their intermediaries and during the talks are very different. They need to America needs to let its domestic, audience know about what the position is. This president wants to ensure that he's not seen as a weak president, that, America is winning this war. And Iran, for its part, wants to, send the point across that it's not lost at all. It remains extremely viable. Iran has always seen this to be an existential threat. And therefore, their key point is that, not only do we exist, but we are the ones who are guiding, the talks. It's sort of happening on the basis of our demands, whether it's the Strait of Hormuz or whatever else that we desire. So it's, both sides taking the maximum position, but these are maximum positions being played out on social media. The Iranians are also part of the social media game. They've been tweeting out extremely provocative tweets from various embassies that they have around the world. And of course, on the other side, Donald Trump making these very direct statements as well. Let us hope that there are saner minds in the talks, because if there aren't, then we're all in deep trouble.
One more question. The 4 points that I just listed: Lebanon, uranium, assets, and the Strait of Hormuz. I'm not going to presume to know what's on the minds of the negotiators, but they've obviously got their briefs, right? They would go in prepared. They would have war-gamed mentally how they're going to grapple with these issues that seem insurmountable to most of us on the outside. What do you think about that? I mean, is there any meeting point on any of these issues?
Well, the Strait of Hormuz can be resolved, but grabbing Iranian uranium and then going away, or the Iranians handing over their enriched uranium, which is what I think about close to 400 kilos, apparently deep underground, in places which are likely to have already been bombed by the Americans, handing it over to the Americans on a silver platter and saying, look, there you go, no further Iranian nuclear to build weapons, and here is proof of that. I don't see that happening at all. I don't even know if it's physically possible to recover that 400 kilos of uranium, which apparently the Iranians enriched to a point where they could further enrich it and get to weapons grade. So I don't know how that's going to be resolved. Secondly, if there is any expectation at the American level that they are going to get the Iranians to commit to cutting down on the ballistic missile or drone program, that's not going to happen, simply because the Iranians realize that they cannot fight conventionally against Israel or the United States, or for that matter, any other nation. They fight this war of asymmetry, hence drones and ballistic missiles are something that they depend on.
Yeah.
I do believe that the Strait of Hormuz is the point where both sides can agree, but let's take a look at whether those talks actually result in that.
Let's just show our viewers right now, and gentlemen, stay with me, what the non-negotiables are, because it's very interesting how the delegations are there. They've already listed what they're not willing to budge an inch on. Here are Iran's non-negotiables. Acceptance of the right to enrichment of uranium. They say, absolutely will not change our minds on that. Number 2, ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon. There seems to be some movement towards the possibility of that, so cannot be ruled out outright. Number 3, Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. You've heard Trump talk about a joint venture, a joint control, making a lot of money out of Hormuz. So this may be some kind of a deal element in these ceasefire talks. Number 4, termination of all IAEA resolutions. Very, very complicated. The IAEA, as you know, is the global nuclear body. Will Iran agree to it, especially since the last 2 times it has shown willingness to talk about IAEA resolutions, it has literally been bombed by the United States. Number 5, payment of compensation for Iran. Right here on NDTV, you had the personal representative of Mujtaba Khamenei tell me here on NDTV that the aggressors, which is the US and Israel, will be made to pay compensation to Iran for all the damage done. Number 6, a security guarantee for non-aggression. This is probably the easiest non-negotiable that can be achieved. And finally, unfreezing of Iranian assets. What this means is there are billions of dollars of Iranian funds that are locked in banks in Qatar and elsewhere, which have been frozen by the United States. Iran is saying, unfreeze those. We need the money for reconstruction work in Iran. What about the non-negotiables for the United States? And there are many. Number 1, end all uranium enrichment, to which, as you just saw, Iran has said, no way, we will not negotiate on that. Number 2, no pursuit of nuclear weapons. Remember, Iran has always said that as part of religion, the pursuit of nuclear weapons is considered haram. Therefore, they have never wanted to pursue nuclear weapons. The enrichment of uranium is only for nuclear fuel for peaceful electricity and power purposes. Number 3, transfer of all nuclear material to the IAEA. Will the Iranians agree to that? At this point of time, probably not, but we'll have to wait and see. Number 4, unrestricted IAEA inspections. Possibility, given where things are at this point of time, especially since Iran has signaled that its uranium is only for civilian peaceful purposes. Number 5, keep Strait of Hormuz open. Possible, but under Iranian control. Remember the statement that came out of Iran saying that Coordination will have to happen with Iran for passage through the Strait of Hormuz. And finally, halting of funding of arming of proxies of Iran. These are the Houthis, this is Hamas, this is Hezbollah. Will Iran agree to stop funding those proxies? We don't know that yet because these are Iran's armies in the entire region. Now let's tell you about the negotiators. These are the people who are going to be sitting around that table in just a short while from now. You already know some of the names, but I want to show you what it's going to look like. The US delegation has Vice President J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff is the US Special Envoy to the Middle East and a peace envoy for the Trump administration. Jared Kushner is son-in-law of Donald Trump and also one of his special advisors. The Pakistan delegation will be led by Chief Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Field Marshal, or rather General Asim Munir, who's the Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan, Ishaq Dar, who's the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Pakistan. Thankfully, the Defense Minister of Pakistan will not be there. Iran's delegation is led by Mohammad Ghalibaf. He's the Parliament Speaker. He's the person you've seen in all the pictures and the one arriving first out of that aircraft in those images. Abbas Araghchi, who's the Foreign Minister of Iran, is the number 2 on this delegation. Mohammad Bagher Zoldagar is the Secretary of the National Security Council, of Iran. Saeed Khatibzadeh is the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran. You had seen him in the early days of the war. Reza Amiri Moghadam is the Iranian ambassador to Pakistan. Obviously, he's also going to be part of the negotiations. So this is what that table could end up looking like in Islamabad in a few minutes from now. Well, from a reluctant voice on war to America's chief dealmaker, J.D. Vance is the preferred interlocutor for Iran because Iran didn't want to speak to someone else. And that's the reason why the man who was least enthusiastic about the war is leading the ceasefire talks for America. J.D. Vance now faces the most defining moment, perhaps, of his political career. Dispatched by Trump to Islamabad, Vance, about to land, is leading this high-stakes talks to turn a fragile Iran ceasefire into what is hopefully a lasting peace in the region, even as tensions over Lebanon, sanctions, and the Strait of Hormuz threaten to derail negotiations before they begin. For the 41-year-old Vance, that's right, he's just 41 years old, who's kept a notably low profile during this entire war, it will be perhaps a turning point in his politics. Vance built his political brand as an avowed anti-interventionist who wanted to keep America out of any more foreign wars, like in Iraq, where he served as a US Marine. And remember, not starting any new wars was also a Trump promise to the MAGA ecosystem. That has made for a difficult balancing since Trump launched this war. Vance has publicly backed the conflict, but has kept out of the limelight. That limelight has been occupied by people like Rubio and Hegseth. When the ceasefire was announced, J.D. Vance happened to be far away in Hungary when it was announced. The New York Times reports that this week, that in discussions behind closed doors in weeks before the war, J.D. Vance argued against military action, saying it could cause regional chaos and split Trump's MAGA coalition. And he was right about that. You're seeing many big influencers and OG MAGA supporters now turning against Trump and turning against Israel. But now J.D. Vance finds himself as Trump's diplomatic head boy for this Iran deal. Okay, let's go back to our reporters now. I'm bringing Vishnu back in. Nazir and Pradeep also continue to be with us. Vishnu, J.D. Vance, I want to talk about him for a moment. It's not surprising at all that Iran wanted him to lead the delegation or him to be the face that they would speak to, because he's the one who's been least enthusiastic about this war. He's been, advising constantly against precisely what has happened over the last 40 days, and therefore he may be more amenable in these ceasefire talks.
Well, the fact of the matter is that there were talks which were being held before America went ahead and Israel went ahead and struck. And those attacks, took place at a time when talks were scheduled for Geneva. Leaders of all sides were expecting. There were announcements publicly that, there is some progress which is likely being made, and therefore, we must move ahead with these talks. So those talks were being led by Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, and therefore, there was a sense among the Iranians that, look, if these people were talking to us earlier on, and despite those talks taking place, the attacks went ahead, in the first instance, why do we believe them at all? Which is why the role of J.D. Vance comes in. J.D. Vance, as you mentioned, the U.S. Vice President somebody who has, according to reports, said that no, apparently an attack on America is not, or on Iran is not the right thing to do. It could have huge ramifications, repercussions. Donald Trump decided not to take it or listen to what he had to suggest. And the attacks went on. Today, he finds himself as the person the Iranians likely trust the most. So he has an absolutely critical role. Can I just suggest, Shiv, that this is the most important moment in J.D. Vance's political career. It's no secret that come 2028, when America goes into elections, there is a strong possibility that the Republicans might feel J.D. Vance. He would certainly have that as well in mind. It's not that he's sort of going to do anything with his election or potential election in focus. But this is the moment, and this is my point, that will define J.D. Vance. It will define him for his entire political career. If J.D. Vance emerges as that quote-unquote trump card that actually pulls peace out of the rabbit's hat, then I do believe that he will have established himself as a global leader of significance. If this falls through, there is no breakthrough, or if the talks collapse, then I do believe that J.D. Vance is going to have to take a lot of the blame for that as well.
There's a huge amount riding on him. I completely agree. Nazir, bringing you in, Lebanon especially, but all of the countries in the Gulf will be hoping that Vance, who is a Trump loyalist, but also seen as one of the more rational voices within the Trump administration, will be able to pull off what looks like the impossible at this time, Nazir.
Yeah, that's a big question, as there's $1 million question. But one important thing is that what Trump is asking, he's asking two things: no nuclear weapons and Hormuz. I think in both the cases, Iran doesn't have any problem. Number one, there's a fatwa by Ayatollah Ali Khamenei that Iran will never develop a nuclear weapon because it is forbidden in Islam to have such a lethal weapon. No to nuclear weapons. So they don't have any problem in saying no. We will not have a nuclear weapon. So this demand is accepted. Number second is Hormuz. Hormuz was open before the war. It was closed because of the war. So they would not be, and they're already talking to the world leaders, France, everybody, that you take. So there would be certain give and take on that. But essentially, in principle, they don't want to keep that closed. They want to keep that open. They know it. But they are always pre-negotiation posturing. And remember, Iran has very seasoned diplomats on the table. That's not the case with the United States. They may have power and everything, but not the seasoned diplomats on the table, on this table. So they know how to deal with Iran, how to send the right message, signaling before talks and during talks. They also know how in the middle of talks they were attacked. At that time, Iran was also talking to US. And this time, what is different is J.D. Vance. And they believe he's the one. He was not a warmonger. He didn't want war. And also they have now realized, and as the reports from US has come, US was not prepared to enter into war. They were pushed into this war by Netanyahu. So now we see there are lots of things have changed since. Well, there's a lot of rhetoric. Both the sides want to save this deal and move ahead and not go back into war, despite all this pre-negotiation posturing.
Pradeep, J.D. Vance is an important figure at this point of time because, for Israel, this is a bit of a slippery slope. This is a man who had basically advised against a war that Israel was pushing. It was Netanyahu that had prescribed this entire war. J.D. Vance was seen in some ways as a bit of a political adversary because he was advising Trump not to fall for this, if I can put it very simply. So this is going to be complicated as far as the Israel element is concerned.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Otherwise, also Israel is not a part of this discussion because being an important stakeholder so far as war is concerned. And now J.D. Vance leading this delegation, definitely Israel will be keeping a keen eye on the discussion, what stand he's going to take. But you look at what kind of the statement right now is emanating. This is simply a posturing that they are doing, and it's a mind game they are playing. And also one can see that, as Vishnu rightly said, they are addressing the domestic audience, even if it's not a conciliatory tone, more of a confrontational one. They are trying to send a message back home that they are not weaker So that's why they are taking this stand. But so far as this Israel is concerned, Israel will definitely want that at least a decision should be taken that's going to keep Israel interest in mind, because that's what the message was conveyed 3-4 days back also by Israel while the ceasefire was announced. He said that they want to look into all the things. One, the existential threat so far as Hezbollah is concerned, and also the threat from the other Houthis and Hamas, the proxies that Iran has been feeding and supporting. So far as this war is concerned, you rightly said that J.D. Vance was never in favor of the war. He said that it would definitely lead to chaos. But as a diplomatic boy, you rightly put it out that right now he is the man who, in fact, right now the Donald Trump thinks that he can deliver the best on the table, because he has to iron out differences, because there are so many differences, because he had a task cut out for him, and it's really a litmus test for him also, because he has to cut out the differences, try to iron out all those differences, and to ensure that at least the deal survives, because at the end of the day, the whole world is watching, because Strait of Hormuz is one issue which everybody wants to be resolved. The reason is that this disruption in the Strait of Hormuz has led to lot many problems. It has led to energy crisis. Look at the price of the oil barrel. It has initially, when the ceasefire was announced, it has come down. But once again, it has come up. So if the disruption in that area continues, it is definitely going to put hole in the pocket of each and every person here in this region. That's one of the reasons the ripple effect has been felt. So this will be the main important thing, how he is going to deal with this issue. So far as uranium issue is concerned, obviously they can talk of inspectors. Maybe they can say, you can send inspectors, you can look out at the things. We are only going for the peaceful means of using this uranium. It will not be meant for any kind of a nuclear facility. No, it will not be palatable to anybody, because even if it is a fatwa, not fatwa, because nobody is going to digest that if they have got enriched uranium, they will not be using it for making a nuclear bomb, because already there are several records that insist that they had been planning for that thing. So, but what actually they will be looking at, okay, fine, you can have inspectors, they will be coming and checking out things that can be resolved. And the third is that to what extent they are going to stop providing arms and ammunition, aiding, abetting, funding all those proxies like Houthi, Hamas, and Hezbollah. That's what actually will.
I see. I agree. I share Vishnu's assessment that some of these non-negotiables are probably negotiable. If the right sort of compromises and caveats are put in place. Don't never underestimate the power of diplomacy and the use of words, especially in documents. All it really requires is an intent to wind things down. If that intent aligns, then believe me, these two delegations can more than find some kind of common cause in resolving these issues. But I'm very skeptical still on uranium and the Strait of Hormuz for some reason. So let's see how that goes.